Houston, Texas, 1972. A private gym after hours. George Foreman is 23 years old, Olympic gold medalist, undefeated heavyweight boxer. 37 wins, 34 knockouts, the most feared puncher in boxing. Bruce Lee is visiting America, teaching seminars, promoting his philosophy. Word spreads that he's in Houston for 2 days. Foreman hears about it. He's curious. This kung fu guy everyone talks about. Foreman wants to see if it's real or just Hollywood theatrics. Through mutual connections, a private meeting is arranged. No cameras, no press, no witnesses except one trusted friend each. Just George and Bruce in an empty gym at midnight. They meet, shake hands. Two legends from different worlds. George makes an offer. "I want to test this, you and me, see what happens." Bruce studies George. 6'3", 220 pounds of solid muscle, hands that have knocked out grown men with single punches. "You want to fight?" Bruce asks. "I want to understand. What you do versus what I do. Real test. What happens in the next 12 minutes will haunt George Foreman for 40 years. So profound, so personal, that he'll refuse to speak about it publicly until he's an old man. Let me tell you about the night George Foreman learned that being the strongest man in the room means nothing if you can't touch your opponent. 1972. George Foreman is unstoppable. He's demolished everyone in his path. Olympic gold medal in Mexico City. Turned pro. Destroying professional fighters like they're amateurs. His power is legendary. When George hits you, you don't just go down, you question your life choices. Fighters are terrified of him. George is confident, maybe overconfident. He believes boxing is the ultimate fighting form. Anything else is inferior. Then he hears about Bruce Lee, this small Asian guy teaching movie stars, supposedly unbeatable. George is skeptical. Hollywood exaggeration, probably. But curiosity gets the better of him. Through a promoter who knows both men, a private meeting is arranged. No publicity, no spectators, just a genuine test. George arrives at the gym at midnight. His trainer, Dick Sadler, accompanies him. The gym is empty, lights dim except for the ring area. Bruce arrives 10 minutes later, brings Dan Inosanto, his top student. They greet each other respectfully. George is struck by how small Bruce is, maybe 135 pounds. George has sparring partners bigger than this guy. "Thank you for meeting," George says. "I've heard a lot about you." "Likewise," Bruce replies. "Olympic champion, impressive record." They talk for a few minutes, feeling each other out. George is direct. "I want to test this. Your style versus boxing. No audience. Just us. See what's real." Bruce considers. "What did you have in mind?" "Sparring. Light contact. Just to understand. Can your techniques work against a boxer?" Bruce nods. "Okay, but let's establish rules. Light contact. Stop when someone taps out or calls stop. This is education, not combat." George agrees. They're both professional. They understand the difference between testing and trying to hurt each other. They step into the ring. No gloves. Bruce wants to use his full range of techniques. George agrees. He wants to see everything. George sets his boxing stance, classic. Hands up, chin down, feet positioned, ready. Bruce stands loose, hands low, casual, like he's waiting for a bus. George throws a jab, testing, measuring distance. Bruce isn't there. The jab hits air. George throws another, faster. Bruce moves minimally. The punch misses by inches. George starts to feel something unfamiliar. Frustration. He's used to hitting people. His jabs land. Always. He throws a combination. Jab, jab, right cross. Solid technique. Power behind it. Bruce flows around all 3 punches, not blocking, not catching, just not there when they arrive. George resets. This guy is fast, really fast. Okay, time to get serious. George unleashes a real combination. Everything in his arsenal. Jabs, crosses, hooks, uppercuts. The kind of assault that overwhelms opponents. 10 seconds of continuous punching. George's hands are flying. Bruce moves like water. Every punch misses, not by much, but consistently. George can't touch him. George stops, breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, from confusion. How is this possible? Bruce hasn't thrown a single strike, just avoided. Want to continue? He asks. George nods. But something has shifted in his mind. This isn't what he expected. Can I try something? Bruce asks. What? I'll show you why your punches aren't landing. May I touch you? I'll move slowly. George agrees. Curious now, not competitive. Bruce steps closer. Shows George in slow motion. Watch my eyes. Where am I looking when you punch? George throws a jab slowly. Watches Bruce's eyes. They're not on the fist. They're on George's shoulder. Your shoulder moves first, Bruce explains. Before your fist leaves. Your body telegraphs the punch. I'm reacting to your shoulder, not your fist. George processes this. His whole boxing career he's been telegraphing. It never mattered because opponents couldn't react fast enough anyway. Try to hit me without moving your shoulder first, Bruce suggests. George tries. It feels wrong, weak. His entire punching power comes from shoulder rotation. Exactly, Bruce says. Your power requires telegraph. My speed comes from eliminating telegraph. Different philosophies. If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. George is fascinated now. Show me what you mean. Bruce demonstrates. Stands at arm's length from George. I'm going to touch your face. 5 times. Try to block. George sets his guard. He's blocked thousands of punches. He's ready. Bruce's hand appears at George's jaw. Light touch. George didn't see it coming. Didn't see it travel. Just felt the arrival. Bruce resets. Again? George focuses harder. Determined. Bruce's hand touches his temple. George's block is still coming up when the touch happens. 3 more times. Same result. Bruce's hand reaches George's face before George can react. George drops his hands. Stares at Bruce. That's impossible. My reflexes are trained. Olympic level. How are you faster? Bruce explains patiently. I'm not faster. You're reacting to what you see. By the time you see, process, and respond, I'm already there. I eliminate the visual cue you need to react to. George's mind is racing. His entire understanding of fighting is shifting. Want to see something else? Bruce asks. George nods, speechless. Throw your hardest punch at me, full power. I'll show you why power alone isn't enough. George hesitates. I don't want to hurt you. Bruce smiles. You won't. Trust me. George sets himself, throws his right cross, full power. The punch that has knocked out 34 professional fighters. Bruce isn't there. George's fist passes through empty air. George's momentum carries him forward, off balance. Bruce is beside him. Could have struck George's exposed ribs, back, neck. Doesn't. Just stands there. George recovers, turns, realizes how vulnerable he was. If this were a real fight, Bruce could have done serious damage. Power means nothing if you can't land it, Bruce says quietly. And when you miss with full power, you're exposed. Balance gone, defense gone. George feels something he hasn't felt since childhood. Humility. Complete humility. Can you teach me? George asks. Bruce looks at him, studies him. I can teach you principles, but you'd have to unlearn everything boxing taught you. That's your foundation, your success. I don't think you should abandon it. Why not? Because you're great at what you do. Boxing suits you. Your size, your power, your style. What I teach works for me because of my body, my speed, my approach. Mixing them might make you worse at both. George absorbs this. Bruce isn't trying to convert him, isn't claiming martial arts is superior, just showing him a different approach. But there's something I can teach you, Bruce adds, about reading opponents, about staying present, about not relying only on power. That would make your boxing better. For the next hour they talk. Not sparring, just talking. Bruce explains his philosophy. George shares his boxing experiences. Two masters discussing their crafts. Bruce teaches George concepts, not techniques. How to read shoulder movement, how to stay centered when missing, how to recognize when power isn't the answer. George is absorbing everything. This isn't what he expected. He came to test Bruce. Instead, he's receiving the greatest lesson of his career. Finally, around 2 a.m. they finish, shake hands. "Thank you," George says, "for not embarrassing me. You could have. In front of witnesses, you could have made me look foolish." Bruce shakes his head. "That's not teaching, that's ego. You came here honestly curious. I respected that." "Can I ask you something? Why did you agree to this? You could have refused." Bruce considers. "Because you're a champion. You've achieved greatness in your field. When greatness meets greatness, both can learn. Tonight wasn't about proving who's better. It was about understanding different paths to excellence." George nods. Profound wisdom in those words. They part ways. George drives home, doesn't sleep, keeps replaying the evening, the punches that missed, the touches he couldn't block, the lesson about telegraph, the humility. Over the following weeks, George applies what Bruce taught. In training, he starts noticing his opponent's shoulders, sees their punches coming earlier. His defense improves. But more importantly, his mindset shifts. He stops relying purely on power, starts thinking about timing, positioning, reading opponents. January 1973. George Foreman destroys Joe Frazier to become heavyweight champion. 2 rounds. Complete domination. Reporters ask about his improved technique. George almost mentions Bruce, almost tells the story. But he doesn't. The night was private, sacred. He keeps it to himself. July 1973. Bruce Lee dies. George hears the news. He's devastated. Wants to attend the funeral. Wants to tell people about that night. But he doesn't. Bruce's widow, Linda, doesn't know about the meeting. George doesn't want to intrude on grief with stories. Years pass. George's career continues. He loses to Ali in Zaire, retires, becomes a preacher, makes a comeback, becomes oldest heavyweight champion at age 45. Through it all, he never tells the Bruce Lee story. Not to reporters, not in his autobiography, not even to close friends. People ask him about martial arts, about Bruce Lee. George deflects. Bruce was great at what he did. That's all he'll say, for 40 years. If you love Bruce Lee's stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. 2012. George Foreman is 63 years old. He's being interviewed for a documentary about boxing legends. The interviewer asks, "Did you ever meet Bruce Lee?" George pauses. 40 years of silence. But he's old now. Bruce has been gone for decades. Maybe it's time. "Yes," George says, "once, in private." What happened? George takes a deep breath, tells the whole story. The midnight meeting, the failed punches, the touches he couldn't block, the lesson about telegraph, the hour of conversation. "Why did you never tell anyone?" the interviewer asks. George's eyes water. Because it was the most humbling night of my life. I was Olympic champion, undefeated, the strongest puncher in boxing, and I couldn't touch him, couldn't even see his strikes coming. That must have been frustrating. It was. But then Bruce taught me. Didn't mock me, didn't show off, just taught. With patience and respect. That night changed how I thought about fighting, about strength, about humility. Did it make you a better boxer? George nods. Absolutely. I started reading opponents better, relying less on pure power, understanding that strength has many forms. Bruce taught me that in one night. Why speak about it now? Because I'm old. Bruce deserves credit for what he taught me, and people need to understand he wasn't just fast, he was wise. He could have humiliated me that night. Instead, he elevated me. That's greatness. The interview goes viral. George Foreman reveals secret Bruce Lee encounter. Boxing fans are shocked. Foreman couldn't touch Bruce Lee? Martial artists aren't surprised. That's exactly how Bruce operated, teaching, not dominating. The story spreads, becomes one of the great legends. Not because Bruce defeated Foreman, he didn't. Because Bruce taught Foreman, elevated him, made him better. That's the real legacy, not the fights, not the demonstrations. The teaching, the wisdom, the respect. George Foreman challenged Bruce Lee in private. 40 years later, he finally told the world what happened. Not a fight, a lesson. The most important lesson of Foreman's career.